Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. And for those of you who are arm wrestling fans, the diehard, you'll need no introductions for the guy that's sitting opposite me right now. Even for those of you who have never heard of arm wrestling in your entire life and didn't even know it was a sport, you probably know the guy who's sitting opposite me right now. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce this guy anyway. He is a living legend in the sport of arm wrestling who rose to prominence following the film Pulling John, where he famously defeated Alexei Vovoda at the 2003 World Championships in Ottawa. And his story was told quite a bit in that film. We're going to try and go a little bit deeper, however. Ladies and gents, it's Travis, the Beast, Bagent. Travis, how's it going, brother?
Everything is great, young man. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, and I'll take the young man all day, every day, mate. All day, every day. I'm glad you didn't point out the grey there. It's always nice. Yeah. It's been a while, Travis, since we I think the last time we saw each other was, what, 2 years ago at the World Arm Wrestling League event?
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, it's, time flies. So I believe probably the same time we were both in the same room together, I would say probably that was it.
Great shame. It's obviously, mate, the strange times we find ourselves in at the moment. COVID-19 created something. Probably the last time anybody saw anything like this in terms of travel bans would have been a world war. It's absolutely nuts. How bad is it where you are, Travis?
It's not terribly bad, like, per se, in my neighborhood. We are in West Virginia. We're only an hour from D.C. and Maryland. So we have to be careful that, if we don't do our due diligence, we could end up in that same hot spot that they're in. And, living in West Virginia, we don't exactly have the same funding that the other states do. So our numbers could be low due to a lack of testing, or it could be low because, we don't have as many people. We're a little more spread out than they are in the big cities. So one or the other.
So, Travis,
it depends if you're a Republican or a Democrat, right?
Oh, yeah, we see that on the news. There's a lot going down over there. It's politically charged, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, Trump's either killing us or saving us. There's no
one of the two. Yeah. Well, it's difficult to see how anybody gets out of this situation, mate. I think we're going to be here for the foreseeable future, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I was watching the TV last night and it said, oh, yeah, it could take at least 18 months to get a vaccine, maybe even more. And we're seeing situations such as the one in China where they open the doors a little bit again and suddenly they're back on the climb and cases are coming back strongly. So it's scary times, mate. It really is. Scary times, and probably reshape the world.
Yeah, and me personally, I mean, I've been shut down by guys with strong hands and guys that had good timing, but I've never been shut down like this coronavirus. It's got me. I mean, I'm working on my 9th event that got canceled from Supercross. I was supposed to go to Australia and hang out with Ryan. So this is peak season for Travis Bagent. So it's more of a tough gig financially than it is a change of life. I'm a pretty boring, lazy dude. So I keep quarantined unless, it's on the weekends and I'm working. So, it is what it is. The good thing is that I've stolen enough money from arm wrestlers over the years that I just dug a bunch of holes, and I just got to dig up some of those $100 bills from those entry fees that I've just been killing them on all these years. So, my life hasn't changed.
So, Travis, thanks for taking the time out, mate. It's nice you agreed to come on the show, and I expected nothing less, mate. I know you're an often misunderstood character. A lot of people probably don't appreciate the sort of the degree that arm wrestling is woven into your fabric, into your DNA, mate. Obviously, some of the people who've got an insight of that by seeing Pulling John, but you don't get to the status, you don't get to the level of ability that you have achieved in this sport without having an obsessive compulsive disorder when it comes to getting yourself on an arm wrestling table. And what I wanted to do with this, mate, is really just give people a window onto the real Travis Bagent, to give them some background, an indication of where you came from, your evolution in the sport. Obviously, a good place to start that really would probably be when you were a kid. When did you sort of, I mean, watching the film Pulling John, there's a little bit of camaraderie between you and Jerry, your dad, when he's saying there that you were a weak kid and all this, and you're laughing away in the background. But just give us some insight onto that, mate. What were your beginnings in the sport of arm wrestling, Travis?
Yeah, so it's interesting to tell my story when it comes to the childhood, and especially when it comes to arm wrestling. I have to expose, some dark things. So the fact is that my father, his name is Jerry Boyd, and even the fact that you said your relationship with Jerry before you said your relationship with your father, it kind of means a little something, right? Like, I don't know your dad's name, but I know your dad, right? Mm-hmm. Because he's Neil's dad, right? Like, I've seen you 35 times in my life. 10 of them, your dad's been right there. And I see that there's a relationship there that I hope that I have with my kids, right? That would be a tremendous thing for me to, as an adult and have an adult kid and us traveling, experiencing things. So I'm looking forward to that. I've had some of it, my son's 19, but so to go back, my childhood, there was no father, right? There was a myth. There was a story about a human being that was your biological father. He only lived 15 minutes, 20 minutes up the road, but you didn't see him very much, right? So Jerry had 10, 12 other kids, ages 10 years older than me, maybe 12 years older than me, and down to 12 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So you're talking a 25-year career that this human being had at in relationships with women, and for whatever reason, having kids did not scare Jerry Boyd at all. So my mother was a babysitter of his first wife's kids. There's 3 kids, Jerry, Lynn, Kim, and Scott. They were my half brothers. My mom was their babysitter. Mm-hmm. The babysitters, the people who hired my mom, her friend Loretta, introduced, because she was the babysitter for my dad's kids and my dad's kids' new father, the stepfather. And she introduced the babysitter to my dad, mm-hmm. And then my dad and my mom started dating, and I was, conceived or whatever. And then my mom and him broke up for 4 or 5 years. They got back together and had my younger brother. Both of me and my brother's godmother is my dad's first wife, Loretta, mm-hmm. that introduced. So the family is kind of a strange dynamic. So I was really tight with my dad's kids and my dad's ex-wife, not my dad too much, right? Now, mm-hmm. my older siblings would have relationships with my dad that sounded cooler than what they was. I thought that he was like really taking care of these guys from their stories. But as we got older, they convinced me that, he wasn't there for them either too much. You know what I mean? Wasn't really good on the whole child support thing. He worked out a deal with these ladies somehow that he could pay them, $60 a month for 2 kids. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. My man was a genius. Somehow he worked it out. But the people who knew my dad knew that he was like the strongest man in the world. Like, mm-hmm. that's what I would hear. So I would go to the store and the clerk would say, "Hey, ain't you Jerry's son?" And I said, yes, sir, I'm Jerry. Man, and they would tell me some story about this guy and how, like, literally these people thought that he was the strongest man in the world. And mm-hmm. I didn't realize it until even I got older that he was probably the 5th strongest man in the history of the world. But it was so crazy that he could be this guy that was just here. You know what I mean? And we all think that our dads are amazing, but usually we go experience things that we then look back and say, well, our dad's cool, right? Mm-hmm. But he's not, that cool, in that way. But my dad actually, come to find out, was that fucking cool, right? And when I say top 5, maybe it's top 500, maybe it's top something, but all I know is I personally have seen him do 2 things that I've never seen anyone else do, right? And I've been all over the world.
What were those things, mate?
One of them is I have this 6-pound sledgehammer that I do the little tricks on. And the reason is because my dad, when you walked into the club, he had a 20-pound sledgehammer sitting there with a $500 bet if anyone could hold the end of the tape with their feet behind the handle and lift the fucking thing up and hold it there for 3 seconds and set it down. Well, I've seen people, no one can do it. And I've seen my dad do it 5,000 times, all the time, with the greatest of ease ever. And I do it with a 6-pound sledgehammer, and it cuts out about 85% of the population. Yeah. Right. And I do it, and I'm not talking shit. I'm telling the truth, right? I'm doing these events, 20 events a year in front of 40,000 people. 1,000 people are trying this stuff, and I am experimenting with, and I think I have a pretty good hypothesis on human beings now and their strength. Yeah. At least in the United States of America. And he done that, and I also seen him tear a deck of cards and then put the cards together and tear them again, which I've never seen. Right now, maybe it's just because I've never seen anyone attempt it. You know what I mean?
No, it's mega feat of strength, mate. That's good. It's really strong.
Absolutely. Yeah, just absolutely ridiculous. And in the fact that it's a 20-pound sledgehammer and I'm working with this 6-pound sledgehammer, there's such a degree of difference between these. They're amazing, right? So these people, and my dad also used to take a broomstick, take it out, put a brick on the end of it, and he would use that like the sledgehammer. And that was his little trick to all the places that he delivered Lance food products, which are crackers and snacks and vending machines, to all these people. So he was the delivery driver that would arm wrestle, the new up and coming store clerk that was always there, So there was these things everywhere we went. Everyone knew him. He always had a nightclub, bar, pool hall on the side. Hard-working guy, 100 hours a week kind of guy.
Grafter,
really putting it in it. Didn't need to sleep much, but didn't super proud dude. But for whatever reason, fatherhood was not his main thing. So when I grew up, there was this guy that if you didn't know me very well, he was my father, and we would talk about that. But if you knew me, you knew that I didn't know him any better than you knew him, really. And to the degree that I'm like, up until 11 years old, I'd see him 5 times a year. And when I see him, it wouldn't be because there was a meeting. It would be because he would have the Lance truck and he would roll into the 7-Eleven and my mom say, "Hey, there's your dad. Go see if you can get some money from him." That's what she would say. So I'd go up there for 5 times a year. Until I was 11 years old, he would give me a Snickers bar and say, "Hey, buddy, good to see you." And now I don't even like peanut butter, right? I don't even like this fucking thing, right? And I'd go home and I'd give it to my mom, or I'd go over to the car and she'd be like, "Go tell him you don't fucking want a Snickers bar, right? You want some money." And I'm like, I'm not going back over there, right? So this was my relationship with this human being. But for whatever reason, everyone knew he arm wrestled. So even at school, right, I would arm wrestle guys like I was arm wrestling because my dad was an arm wrestler and that he taught me, but really he didn't teach me. And I was okay, but there was always that guy that was just a bully that would just keep moving his elbow forward, right, on the lunch table, right? That guy's tough to beat. So I grew up in that situation. Now at 14, 15 years old, my dad had the hottest nightclub in, is it okay to go this far up?
Oh, mate, perfect.
Because there's not much of a relationship except me imagining one, wanting one, and just being like, my dad didn't even lie to me. He didn't even tell me he was going to pick me up on Saturday. He never offered to pick me up on Saturday. You know what I mean? Up until probably 14 years old, and he has the hottest nightclub. I mean, it's hot, man. This place, usually the places were pool hall and redneck dive bars, but he opened up this beast country club in a college town, Shepherd University, where I went to school, where my son currently goes to school. It's 20 minutes down the road from where we live, the local D2 school. So he has the Big Arm Bar and Grill, and it can hold 600 people. So I'm 14 years old, and I have an opportunity to come over there. I don't know, accidentally, I got over there somehow, and my dad was really proud. So, you know, he was like, yeah, come in, do this. And I started shooting pool. Now, what my dad didn't know is that, but since I was 9 years old, I'm down at the pool hall, the local pool hall where I live with my mom. And my mom would give me $3. So I'd have enough for, you know, 6 games if I played and I had to pay, or I could play 12 games if I split the quarter with someone else. We would play a quarter on the 9-ball, 50 cent on the, or quarter on the 5-ball, 50 cent on the 9-ball. So we're in there, you know, being bad little kids running around, riding their bikes through town at the pool hall. We shouldn't really be there, but I'm there all day, every day. And because of my dad, the pool hall owner thought I was awesome. And he's like, listen, you know, you come here and hang out with me. You can stock the shelves. On Sunday, I open the pool hall at 8 in the morning, and you can play with me for free. So I developed this type of relationship. So at 12, 13, 14 years old, I'm pretty good at pool, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at pool right now. So if anybody listening got a problem, I'm in. You know what I mean? As long as you ain't real good, right? Which I thought I was going to play pool on TV and be the best pool player in the world until I met a real pool player. And then I was like, oh, well, this ain't going to happen. But at 14 years old, I'm in my dad's place. I'm shooting pool, and my dad's like, man, what's up with that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is what I do. And he's like, well, listen, you should come over here on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and work the pool room, make sure all the pool sticks, because this, you know, we had 5 pool tables, and, you know, my dad had about 200 pool sticks. For some reason, they were just like, they were more or less scenery throughout the whole wall, like wallpaper. And he's like, you know, we want the sticks straight. We want to fix the pool cues. We want to make sure the tables are thing. You can work that, do a little bar backing, and hang out with me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, this is like I done hit the lottery. Not because I got this relationship with my dad, which is pretty cool, because I'm at the hottest nightclub at 15 years old, right? I mean, it was insane. I'm talking, you know, 1,000 people would come through the door on a Thursday night on college night. It was free pizza at midnight, 25-cent draft for an hour between 12 and 1. It was just absolutely awesome. And then on Friday and Saturday, there'd be a smaller crowd, 300 people of country boys and rock and roll. And it was that kind of country rock and roll bar on the weekends. Thursday night was hip hop college night. And I started arm wrestling. And one of the big things I did is I spotted my dad had a 315-pound bench press. And if you could do that 5 times, you got a free pitcher of beer, but you had to drink the beer out of the pitcher. You got caught pouring the pitcher into someone else's drink. Then, you know, you got kicked out of there. And my dad had 20 dudes that were just absolute studs, right? And that's what they did. They made $20 a night. And my dad said they could always take a young lady home with them if they wanted. They could start drinking at 2 o'clock for free for the last half hour. You know, my dad had another little hour in there where they would all hang out. But you wanted to be on this roster really a lot, right? It was the cool thing to do, is to be on the Big Arm staff. So I would spot the guys. You know, even one time, a guy, he was like on his 5th set of 5, already drank 4 pitchers of beer, comes over there, and the weight gets all wobbly. Weight falls off one side, falls off the other side. I'm looking up, my dad's running over there. What's going on? I'm like, man, I'm 15 years old and not a really super strong guy. But, you know, I think that if you show me a guy that knows how to shoot pool, right, you better be careful with that guy with any coordination thing. You probably don't want to shoot. You don't want to shoot horseshoes with him. You know what I mean? Like, there's things that his hand-eye coordination, the fact that he's thinking about future situations, he's not in this moment, he's about 8 shots ahead. So there's a lot of things that I think that I learned from arm wrestling by just being about 6 foot away from the table with my hand on my chin saying, you got to be kidding me. I mean, this is happening from this view. I can see it perfectly, yet the 2 people that are up there have no idea what I'm looking at. Now, one of them is taking advantage of the other one, but what he doesn't see is how easily it's going to take place from this perspective. So, and on this Friday and Saturday nights, we're not talking about normal clientele. My dad had 8 arm wrestling tables. If you were an elite arm wrestler, it was like taking candy from a baby coming into the big arm on a Friday and Saturday night. I mean, when you walked in, you might as well have been Jay-Z. When I met Ray Patton walked in the big arm with a pair of 30 jeans on. I mean, these jeans was so tight on Ray Patton. And he had these cowboy boots, and he could barely get that, that leg over them cowboy boots. And I mean, sleek snakeskin tip, had a polo shirt on that you had to paint on him. I mean, and feathered back hair, blind, looked like Lee Majors, right? Walking in there between He-Man, the cartoon, and Lee Majors, the Bionic Man. And Ray walked in, my dad put it on the DJ booth, ladies and gentlemen, 5-time world champion Ray Patton is in the house. I mean,
that face, awesome. Yeah.
And then 2 days later or 2 hours later, here comes Junior Hostler, Les Wims. I mean, Artie Ebling. I mean, I didn't know
legendary figures in the sport at the time.
Yeah, the guys are winning. These guys are winning the Atlantic Coast Championship in 1993, 87. Or a guy like Ray. Ray was already everybody's daddy by then, right? Yeah. Like, Ray was the smartest guy in the sport, right? I mean, and a complete selfish human being at the table, right? Like a beast. So I'm around these guys and I'm watching them work, and I slowly started finding somebody I could beat. And it took, and I'm arm wrestling ladies. I'm arm wrestling the oldest dude I can find. And there's only one way I can win, right? If I manipulate their wrist and get it a little bit jacked up and get on them fingers, sucker punch them and beat them. So what I can tell you for my complete life is that I will arm wrestle in 7 months against anybody in the world. And I'm going to use the exact same technique I used when I was 14 years old. And I was trying to beat this grown man who was really stronger than me, but just didn't know how to arm wrestle. So I could just barely, if I was very lucky, I could barely open up a small chance that he would then put himself in a worse position, and then I could beat him. So I think that growing up at that big arm and being in that exact environment, because I could have grown up where it was a kid's gym and I was the most elite kid there. Or you could grow up in a panicky situation where you would do anything for your father to maybe look across the room to the left and see you in a war with one of his okay arm wrestling bouncers at 15 years old. That's what he slowly saw. And then at 17 years old, we move out of that big building and we move back into a small dive bar. And it was a good thing. My dad made a lot of money at the big arm. He sold the building. The building is now a church. And, he made out. And he went back to what he really wanted, was a Patsy Cline small dive bar where he could still generate the same amount of money that he could if he had 40, employees stealing and robbing the place blind, and the insurance and the liability is terrible. So we went back there. Well, it took us about a year we bought a building, super old building, and we started renovating it, just me and my dad. We would have the guys that knew how to do big stuff, but we literally took a brush and went to the floors. And I also hit puberty around 17 years old, right? So for that year, we were working on this new place, and my dad's like, listen, you should just stay at my house. That way we can get an earlier start. So I got it. All of a sudden, all the other 11 siblings, they got a problem with me.
Yeah, because you were the guy who's,
Well, yeah, that relationship that they lied about having, I was actually having.
Yeah.
Right. And it was all because of work. All it had nothing to do with talent yet. Although what he did notice is that I could be around him, work in the pool room, arm wrestling, doing the weight bench, bar backing, and not bother him, I guess, is really what it came down to. Because you really don't want to take your kid to work if he's going to bother you all the time. Mm-hmm. But then there's that one moment where you're like, oh, I can take that kid. It's just because that kid's not a weirdo douchebag who's going to ruin my day, right? I've got 4 kids. 3 of them would ruin my day, right? But one of them, he won't, right? Because he's cool like that, right? Now, there's other things I'd rather do with my other kids, but there's some things you can do with some of them. So I've got this relationship with him. I'm spending the night. We're working really hard, and we're about to open up, and we got the 3 arm wrestling tables there, and my dad grabs me, and I'm getting ready by this time. Like, I'm becoming a little different human being, right? Because my angles are perfect, right? Because I don't know any other angle. I've never went into your power. As soon as I touch you, I'm running away from you, right? Forcing you to hold on to me. Little things that I didn't even know I was doing, I was already doing. So I grab a hold of him, and he says, listen, when we open this place next week, your brothers right away are going to want to take over and make sure, because they're 23 years old, and they were almost beating the 200-pound Ray Pattons, Junior Hostlers, and Art Eblings, even though these guys are 280 pounds, right? Mm-hmm. But they're becoming good arm wrestlers, right? Because as soon as you can beat Ray Patton, I don't care what you weigh.
You're solid.
Things are a little bit different, right? Mm-hmm. So even though Ray was a 160 guy, right? So, but he wasn't a normal 160 guy. Mm-hmm. So so he says, when they get here, I think you can beat those guys now. Like, you might be as good as anybody around here, including Artie Ebling, who was a bad dude, and Junior Hostler. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So I'm getting this little pep talk. Now I'm getting a relationship with my dad that he ain't never had, much less any of his kids, right? He ain't never had this relationship. So, well, lo and behold, my brothers are there. It takes about 3 minutes for all of us to be in the same room. The place is crowded because it's a tiny place. You've been in Billy Jack's. Have you been in Billy Jack's?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think you were here. Right. So it's a small place. So we get 40 people in there, and it's like you're in a crowded nightclub. Mm-hmm. And my dad says something, and Steve says, well, I run everything left-handed. He left-handed, my older brother. And then Scott's like, and he runs, and I can almost beat Scott right-handed, which implying that Scott's the guy right-handed. Mm-hmm. So Jerry said, well, I got news for y'all. Travis is the best arm wrestler in the family. All right. And I got $100, says he is. So right away, they both were very eager. And it all worked out. I was much better than them after that 1.5 year layover, which is something for future arm wrestlers to understand. Like, it's going to be hard to beat that guy if you keep running into him every week. Just remember that. Like, it's better to get away from that guy. It's good to humanize him. You want to know what you're up against. But after that, you need to get away from him and develop either a mental or a physical strategy so that he doesn't have to be your daddy all the time. So that 1.5 years helped. I don't know if it would have, if I'd have saw them guys every day and they would have saw the progression coming. They could have worked harder and maybe kind of slowed that process down. But the funny thing about that situation is what a good, not a good brother I was, but I shared the information with my younger brother, Josh, who's, has no relationship with my dad, doesn't really want one, but is 3 or 5 years younger than me, but is a bad dude, right? Like a stupid bad dude. So I'm teaching him all this stuff, and me and him are arm wrestling all the time. Well, I ended up beating my older brothers, and And then I became the guy, right? For about 2 or 3 years, I'm the man, I'm rolling. And then I start getting into the arm wrestling business. And we may be going too far, but the story is that
No, she's great.
Even my younger brother at 15 years old was able to beat my older brothers who were then 26 years old.
Yeah,
and
so
bothered. And then I could feel it from my dad. I could feel the relationship that he kind of wanted with now my little brother. Because I tell you, when my little brother was 15, 16 years old, and I'm 21, 22, about to take over, I had a hard time with him right-handed. I had a hard time with this guy. This guy was a beast. So my relationship with my dad went from lying about the relationship up until you're 14 years old. You had no relationship before then. It was worse than no relationship. Like, I mean, really bad. And then luckily, getting an opportunity to work with him without annoying him, not letting him know that we were building this relationship. We were just hanging out. And then, you learn a lot about, working hard anyway. There's nothing better working hard with your dad anyway. I mean, once your dad is happy about your performance, it's all good, especially if you don't have that relationship with him. So I learned that too at a young age, that if you want some gratification or whatever, then let it come from them. Don't try to get it from them. Just analyze the situation and then take a part of it, work really hard, do it perfectly, and then their gratification will come to you. You just accept it, right? But you can't really, try to get it, but it'll come to you and you can set it up. And then once I won my first, I think I won the world. Was it the world? No, I think it was the national championships, 1999. I won my first national championship, and I went to, I came home and my dad said, Travis, it may be time to change your name to Boyd. And by this time now, our relationship is one where I can be like, yeah, listen, Jerry. And now even calling him Jerry. Listen, Jerry, I'm good. Everybody kind of knows me as Travis Bagent. I think I'm going to stay with that. You know what I mean? But it's just the whole circle, right? Like, it happened, right? Like, the relationship that I wanted from my pops as a young man, I got it at when I was a young adult. I got it. Now, it's still because of his lack of skills. It wasn't a father-son relationship, but what it became was a awesome best friend, fucking awesome, fun relationship that we both got what we wanted from. I think that my dad was super happy that I was a bad dude at arm wrestling. It ended up being maybe something he was most proud of in his life. So that was good, right? I mean, that's good that he got that.
Yeah, really.
I got no problem with that. Because I'm happy that it happened too. So it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I could have became something that he wouldn't have been as proud of, and I still would have been happy, but it was good that he kind of enjoyed that. And it was good. The only thing that kind of sucks is he loved it more than me. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't like that I didn't take it more serious, like, at all times. So one of the things in 2016, after he had passed away, there was about 4 months there where training for the 2016 finals. And I had already decided that I was going to fully commit. But I think that kind of like cinched it and made me like grind it out a little bit more. And, I think that there's a story there if you want to focus on it. Elaborate and maybe draw some conclusions that aren't 100% there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have Dave Chafee in the chokehold in 2016 when I cracked him. You know what I mean? So the day that he died, 2 hours later, I arm wrestled Nick Zena in the W.A.L regionals in Texas. And as soon as they said go, Nick Zena's middle finger broke. It snapped like. And And I was like, oh man, listen, I'm pretty sure Jerry did that. I apologize to Big Nick that day. So it was, there was definitely some things there. But the good thing is that the story from childhood wasn't so damaging that it couldn't have been, that it couldn't be repaired, or kind of, we kind of both moved on, and he's heard me before talk about how you didn't really step up to the plate. You know what I mean? And so that's good too. I'm glad that he knows that I feel that way, and that I forgive him, and that it's all good. You know what I mean? So that's arm wrestling and my father, and as a kid, and I think where, if you really look into it, it's not that surprising that I got really fucking good at it,
Ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this first episode. And I absolutely loved that. I don't know about you guys. That was exactly what I expected from you, Travis. Brilliant, mate. Absolutely great insight, fella. Fellas, ladies and gents watching, if you like what we do, please like, share, subscribe. We'll be back with a lot more from this fella very, very soon on episode 2. Till that time, take it easy, peeps.